Mara Salas lived on the quiet frontier world of Liar 7, a place where nothing loud ever happened. The town was small, almost sleepy, and the people were simple farmers, miners, and traders. They knew little about war and even less about the galaxy beyond their blue sky. That was exactly why Mara had chosen this place. It was far from the past she wanted to bury. She worked as a mechanic in a small workshop near the town's edge. Every morning she arrived before the sun rose and repaired old farming mechs, broken water drones, and rusted loader carts. She wore thick work gloves and a long coat to hide the scars and cybernetic lines on her skin. No one asked about them. No one dared. She was quiet but reliable. The townspeople respected that. Most people called her Ms. Soul. They believed she was just another wanderer who came looking for peace. No one knew she had once been Captain Mara Salas, war legend, strategist, and the human commander who had broken the Vorgoth Dominion's strongest fleets. That identity was supposed to be gone forever. Every day she worked slowly and carefully, as if afraid to move too fast. The truth was simple. She did not want to remember how fast she could be, how deadly, how unstoppable. The peaceful life she had built was a fragile thing, like glass resting on a thin table. And all it took was one afternoon to make that glass tremble. On that day, she was fixing a large farming mech for a man named Rel. He was a friendly old farmer with kind eyes and a bad back. Mara liked him because he didn't ask questions. He simply left his machines, paid with fresh vegetables, and walked away. As she tightened the last bolt, she heard distant shouting from the town square. She paused. The shouts grew louder. They were sharp, panicked, and frightened. Mara dropped her tools and stepped outside. The dusty wind blew across the ground, carrying the sound closer. "Help! Somebody help!" a voice cried. Mara ran toward the square, her long coat kicking dust behind her. People were gathered in a circle, trying to calm a woman who was holding her small son. The child's leg was badly crushed under a fallen cargo crate. The crate must have slipped from the old delivery lifter near the market. The boy's face was white. His breathing was shallow. The woman was crying. "We need to get him to the central clinic," one of the men said. "But the clinic's medpod is offline," another replied. "It broke again last week. He won't survive the trip to the next town," the mother sobbed. Mara felt something heavy twist inside her chest. She knew that feeling too well, the helpless fear of watching someone slip away because help came too late. She stepped forward quietly. "Move," she said. The crowd parted. They trusted her hands with machines. Maybe they would trust her now. She knelt beside the child and checked his pulse. Weak to weak. He needed emergency extraction to a med ship, not a ground clinic. But Liara 7 had no such technology. Unless... She hesitated. Her past pressed against her ribs like a blade. Using what she knew was dangerous, it could reveal her. But a child's life was more important. She whispered to the mother. "I can send an emergency signal to a fleet-level med ship, but you must trust me." The mother nodded without hesitation. Mara touched the collar of her coat and pressed a small hidden seam. A thin metal plate slid into her hand, the encrypted command chip she had sworn never to use again. It still held the override codes of the Solace Protocol. A forgotten wartime system only elite captains had access to. She inserted the chip into the crate's damaged lifter panel. The machine hummed as her code hijacked its transmitter. "Come on," she muttered. "Just work one last time." Lines of old military text scrolled across the display. She rerouted its power, boosted the signal, and sent a coded SOS to any medical ship within range. The crowd gasped as the lifter's blue lights flashed in a pattern no one had ever seen before. "What is she doing?" Someone whispered. Mara didn't answer. Her focus stayed on the transmitter until finally a tone beeped. A link established. She exhaled in relief. "It's done," she said. "A ship will arrive in 2 minutes." 2 minutes later, a sleek white medcraft dropped through the clouds. Guided by the ancient emergency code she had activated, medics rushed out, stabilized the child, and took him aboard. Before anyone could ask questions, The ship lifted back into the sky and disappeared. The boy was safe. The mother fell to her knees, crying with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you." Mara only nodded and stepped back. Her hands were shaking. The code she had used was not supposed to exist anymore. It belonged to a different life. The crowd murmured, confused and curious. How did she do that? Where did that signal come from? She just summoned a med ship? Mara walked away before they could ask more. Her boots felt heavy. Her breath felt tight. She returned to her workshop and sat in silence for a long time. That night, as she tried to sleep, her old implant flickered behind her ear. It had been dormant for years. Now it pulsed with faint red light. A transmission. She froze. It was a coded alert, one used during the old war. A simple phrase blinked in harsh red letters. Identity signal, detected location, CIOMPR, MISAD. Her heart pounded. She knew what that meant. Someone, somewhere out in the dark of the galaxy, had detected the override code she used. Someone who still tracked old war signals. Someone who should have forgotten her long ago, but they had not. She stood from her bed and walked outside into the cold night air. The stars above Leora 7 were calm and distant. She wished she could be like them, quiet and unseen. Instead, fate had taken notice of her again. The next morning, she tried to return to her work as if nothing had changed. The townspeople stopped by to thank her, offering food, small gifts, and warm smiles. They acted like she had done something miraculous, but the miracle frightened her. At noon, a small group of children ran to her workshop. Miss Soul. Miss Soul. They called one of them, a little girl with bright amber eyes, held a flower. "We heard what you did yesterday. You saved Leo. Mama says you're a hero." Mara's breath caught for a second. "I'm no hero," she said softly. "But you helped." The girl replied. Mara forced a small smile. She took the flower and set it gently on her workbench. "Thank you," she said, but deep inside she felt the weight of a storm building in the distance. She could almost sense it coming, like the faint rumble of thunder beneath a clear sky. For the rest of the day, she worked quietly, pretending everything was normal. But every sound felt sharper. Every shadow felt longer. She kept checking the sky, expecting ships that did not appear. That night, she sat in her workshop long after sunset, staring at the metal plate that held her secret code. She knew she should destroy it, throw it into the furnace and forget the past. Completely. But destruction would not erase the signal that had already gone out. There was no undoing that. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the cold metal wall. For 10 years she had hidden her name, her abilities, and the war that had carved her into a weapon. 10 years she had lived quietly, fixing machines and pretending she was nothing more. But destiny had found her again, and if destiny had noticed, then others would too. Mara looked toward the sky. One more time, the stars were still calm, but she no longer believed in calm. She whispered to herself, "It's starting again." Far away from Leora 7, in a dark and cold corner of space, a massive warship drifted through the silence. It belonged to the Vorgath Dominion, the same enemy Mara Salas had fought many years ago. Most humans believed the Dominion was weak now, broken after the old war. But in truth, the Dominion had only grown quieter, not weaker. Inside the warship, deep within a room filled with red lights and humming machines, a tall figure stood in front of a holoscreen. His name was Kraxtavor, a warlord of the Vorgoth Dominion. His scarred armor glowed faintly, and his 4 sharp eyes narrowed at the flashing alert on the screen. A signal had been detected. Not just any signal, a human military code long thought to be erased from the galaxy. The Solace Protocol. Kraxtavor remembered that name clearly. It haunted him like fire in his veins. His clan had once controlled an entire star system, a place of power and pride. But during the war, Captain Mara Salas had destroyed his fleet in a single, brilliant maneuver that no Vorgoth commander had ever predicted. Krax had survived, but his clan had not. To him, she was not a human. She was a storm. For years he believed she had died. Many reports said Mara Salas perished during the final battle of the Orion conflict. The Dominion never found her body. But the galaxy assumed she was gone, until now. Krax stared at the signal slowly blinking on the screen. It was weak, almost like an echo. But to him, it was as clear as a scream. "It's impossible," he growled, his voice low and rough. "She lives. The Warborn strategist lives." Second in command, a thin Vorgoth soldier named Hask, stepped forward. "Warlord, the signal matches the old human emergency override. Its source is a frontier world. A farming colony." Krax turned sharply. "A farming world? Mara Salas hides among soil and dirt." He let out a cold laugh. How pathetic. How human. But his eyes burned with something darker than amusement and hunger. Not for food or power, but revenge. He lifted his arm and activated the ship's command channel. "Prepare a hunter unit. 5 elite trackers. They will leave at once." Hask hesitated. "Only 5, Warlord? If this truly is Mara Salas, she may be enough," Krax snapped. "She is a shadow of what she once was. 10 years of hiding makes any warrior weak. 5 hunters will be enough to bring her to her knees." Hask bowed and left. Krax continued, staring at the blinking signal. In his mind, he saw the destruction of his clan, the burning remains of ships, and the face of the human commander who caused it. Mara Salas had stolen everything from him. Now, he planned to take everything from her. On Leor 7, life continued peacefully for the settlers. They went to the fields, repaired their mechs, and traded goods in the market. They believed nothing dangerous could reach their quiet town, but Mara felt the change in the air. She woke early, before the sun rose, and stepped outside. The wind was still, too still. The sky looked normal, but something deep inside her warned that the peace she had loved for 10 years was slipping away. She walked to her workshop, but her mind was far from her tools. Her implant buzzed weakly under her skin again. The message it repeated was simple but terrifying. Identity signal detected potential TRS. She knew the Dominion. They did not forgive. They did not forget. And they never let their enemies vanish without punishment. Throughout the day, townspeople continued thanking her for helping the injured child. They brought gifts, food, and smiles, but each thank you added to her worry. Their kindness made them vulnerable. Because if the Dominion came, they would not come quietly. Later that afternoon, while Mara repaired a broken irrigation drone, she sensed movement behind her. Without turning, she asked softly, "Who is it?" A young man named Tobin stepped forward nervously. He was one of the settlers who often visited her workshop to watch her work. "Ms. Soul, are you okay? You seem different today." Mara tightened a screw slowly, keeping her expression calm. "Just tired. Long week." Tobin didn't believe her. "The others are worried too. You've been checking the sky a lot. Looking over your shoulder? Did something happen?" He paused. "Is someone coming?" His question made her freeze for a moment. She finally looked at him, her eyes colder than usual. "Tobin," she said, "there are things about my past you don't know. Things that might bring danger. If anything strange happens, you must keep the others inside the town." He frowned. "Danger? From what?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter yet. Just be careful. And tell your parents to stay alert at night." Tobin nodded slowly, though he didn't understand. He walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. That night, she slept lightly, her senses sharp. Every sound made her open her eyes. Every shift of wind made her hand move closer to the hidden drawer beneath her bed. The drawer where she kept her old command gauntlet, deep in the forest outside the town. Shadows moved silently. 5 of them. They were tall, armored, and walked with the trained grace of hunters. Their glowing eyes scanned the trees. They moved without sound, leaving no footprints behind them. The elite Vorgoth unit, their leader. A tracker named Vorth looked at a small device in his hand. A faint pulsing dot glowed on its display. "The signal is weak," one of the hunters whispered. "But it matches the human code." Fourth nodded. "The warlord wants the human alive. We will take her before dawn." They continued moving through the forest, their weapons ready. These hunters had captured many enemies before, but none as dangerous as Mara Salas. In town, Mara suddenly woke. Her heart raced. Something felt wrong, terribly wrong. She got out of bed, walked outside, and scanned the horizon. Nothing but her instincts screamed. She returned inside and pulled open the hidden drawer beneath her bed. Inside lay the command gauntlet, dull from years of disuse, and the tactical visor she had sworn never to wear. Again, she held them for a long moment. "Not yet," she whispered. She closed the drawer. She wanted to believe she still had time. The next morning began normally. People walked through the square. Children laughed. Birds flew overhead. Everything looked peaceful, but Mara noticed the missing details. A few broken branches near the forest edge, faint marks in the soil, and a strange silence among the trees. Someone had been here. She walked into town, pretending everything was normal, but her mind raced. She scanned rooftops, alleys, and the sky. Anything could be a threat. While crossing the market, she heard footsteps running toward her, his soul. It was the same young girl from before, the child with bright amber eyes. She looked excited. "There were lights in the forest last night. We saw them from the hill." "Blue lights?" Mara's blood turned cold. Blue lights. Dominion trackers use blue scanners when sweeping terrain. "Did you tell anyone else?" she asked quickly. The girl shook her head. "No, Mama said it was probably lightning." But Mama was scared. Mara gently placed a hand on the girl's head. "Listen to me. Stay close to your family today. Do not go near the forest." The girl nodded and ran off. Mara stayed in the market for a few minutes, watching the people she had come to care about, people who had shown her kindness she believed she didn't deserve. She realized then that she could not run. If she left, the hunters would target the town. If she stayed, she could protect them. Her decision was made. She turned and walked back toward her workshop. But just as she reached the door, she felt a sudden sharp presence behind her. A shadow. A hunter. She spun around. But the presence vanished as fast as it had appeared. Only the whisper of disturbed air remained. They were here. Her pulse quickened. She stepped inside her workshop and locked the door. Then she walked straight to the drawer under her bed. This time she opened it without hesitation. She lifted the command gauntlet. It felt cold in her hand, but familiar. Like an old friend she never wanted to see again. She whispered, "If they want me, they will not touch this town." Far above the planet, in his flagship, Warlord Krax Tavor stared at the glowing signal on the holographic map. "Soon," he murmured. "Soon, Mara Salas will face her past, and I will take what she took from me." The hunters closed in. The town slept peacefully, and Mara Salas stood in her lonely workshop, preparing for a battle she hoped would never come, but knew she could not avoid. Destiny had found her, and it was coming fast. The night on Leora 7 came quietly, but Mara Salas knew the silence was a lie. She felt danger moving like cold wind through the trees. Every instinct from her old life whispered that the hunters were close. They were watching. They were waiting. She stood inside her workshop, holding the command gauntlet she had avoided for years. The metal felt heavier now, like it carried the weight of every memory she tried to forget. Her reflection in the polished surface looked like someone she used to be, someone dangerous. She didn't want to wear it again. She didn't want to become that person. But she had no choice. Outside, a soft crunch of leaves reached her ears. Too steady to be an animal. To deliberate to be a settler, they were here. Mara slid the gauntlet onto her arm. It locked into place with a soft snap. The dormant lights flickered to life, glowing faint blue. The visor came next. When she placed it over her eye, data streams and scanning grids appeared in her view. She took a deep breath. She was no longer just Ms. Soul. the quiet mechanic. She was something else now, something the galaxy had once feared. She stepped outside. The air was cold and sharp. The streets were empty. Everyone in town was sleeping, unaware that death prowled in the shadows. Mara walked slowly, listening carefully. Her visor detected faint heat signatures at the edge of Town 5. Of them, large, moving with careful precision, the hunters had come. She reached the open field beyond the last row of houses. The moonlight fell across the grass in silver lines. Then the shadows shifted. 5 armored figures stepped out. They were tall, taller than any human, with black armor that absorbed the light. Their glowing eyes fixed on her, focused and hungry. The leader, Vorth, stepped forward. His voice was low and metallic. "Mara Solace," he said, "you will come with us. Alive. If you resist, the town will burn." Mara didn't move. "These people have nothing to do with me. Leave them out of this." "Your choices made them targets," Vorth replied. "Do not pretend innocence." Behind him, the other hunters spread out, surrounding her. Mara lowered her head. "If it's me you want, then let's see if you can take me." Before Vorth could respond, she moved. It happened so fast, the hunters barely had time to react. Mara dashed sideways, grabbed a handful of loose soil, and threw it into the eyes of the closest hunter. The visor system inside his helmet crackled and blurred. The second hunter lunged at her with a spear-like weapon. She slid beneath the strike and delivered a sharp kick to the joint of his armor. The metal bent with a loud crack, and the hunter collapsed. The remaining 3 opened fire with pulse rifles. Blue streaks of energy cut across the field. Mara rolled behind a large irrigation tank, pulled a panel open, and ripped out the power core. She tossed it into the air. When the hunters shot at it, the core exploded in a burst of white light. The blast blinded them for several seconds. Mara used those seconds. Well, she dashed forward, punched the third hunter in the throat plate, and ripped out a piece of exposed wiring. Sparks flew. The hunter fell. Vorth growled and charged at her with a blade that shone like moonlight. Their weapons clashed, blade against gauntlet, sending vibrations through her arm. "You fight like you remember," Vorth hissed. Mara pushed back with strength she hadn't used in a decade. "I never forgot. I just tried to stop." Vorth swung again. She dodged, grabbed his arm and flipped him onto his back. But he quickly rolled up and pointed a plasma pistol at her. She froze. The remaining hunter, Kay, the largest of them, had slipped behind her. He pressed a blade against her shoulder. Vorth stood and aimed the pistol at her head. "You are strong, but you are alone. It's over, Mara Solace." Mara breathed slowly. Her visor highlighted the trees behind her. She noticed a faint flicker, a heat signature moving fast. A settler. A child. No, it was Tobin. He stepped out of the trees, trembling but holding a farming bolt gun in his hands. "Let her go," he shouted, voice shaking. Mara felt panic rush through her. "Tobin, go back, now." But it was too late. The hunters turned toward him. With children in danger, they had no hesitation. Tobin was not part of their mission. He was a weakness they could exploit before Vorth could fire. Mara grabbed the blade near her shoulder and forced it upward, slicing the big hunter's arm. He roared in pain. She threw herself at Vorth, knocking the pistol from his hand. "Tobin, run!" she yelled. But Tobin didn't run. He fired the bolt gun. The bolt hit the wounded hunter in the chest, knocking him back. Vorth spun and tried to shoot Tobin with a wrist-mounted weapon. Mara dove between them, taking the shot to her armored forearm. The blast burned, but the gauntlet held. She launched herself upward with a speed that shocked Vorth. She slammed her fist into his helmet, cracking the visor. Her second punch broke the breathing tubes on his mask. Vorth fell to one knee, gasping. "Tobin, move!" She shouted. This time, he listened. He ran toward the tree line. The fourth hunter recovered and aimed at Tobin's back. Mara reacted without thinking. She grabbed the fallen pistol from the ground and fired. The shot hit the hunter square in the head, dropping him instantly. Now only Vorth and the injured big hunter remained. Vorth stood again, rage twisting in every movement. You protect these weak creatures? He spat. Mara steadied her breathing. They gave me the one thing the war never did. Peace. That peace ends tonight, Vorth snarled. He rushed at her with furious speed. Their fight became a blurt, punches, kicks, blocks, sparks from clashing weapons. They moved across the field like two storms meeting. Mara ducked low, swept Vorth's legs, and pinned him to the ground with her knee on his chest. He struggled, clawing at her armor. Krax Tavor will burn this world to dust. You cannot stop him. You cannot stop us. She stared into his eyes. I don't plan to give him the chance. With a quick motion, she struck the side of his helmet, knocking him unconscious. The big hunter, weakened and bleeding, tried to stand. Mara approached him slowly. He raised his weapon weakly. Why do you fight? He rasped. She sighed. Because running never saved anyone. She knocked him out with a single strike. The field fell quiet again. Tobin ran back toward her. Ms. Soul, are you okay? She looked at the fallen hunters. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. No, she said softly. This was only the beginning. Tobin stared at the armored bodies. Who are they? Mara removed her visor. Enemies from my past. And because of me, they will come again. Stronger. More dangerous. Tobin swallowed hard. So, what do we do? She looked toward the sky. Clouds moved slowly over the moon. We prepare, she said. And we protect the town. Whatever it takes. Tobin nodded. I'll warn the others. No, Mara said firmly. Not yet. Panic won't help. Let me handle this first. She dragged the unconscious hunters into the forest, hiding their bodies under thick brush. They wouldn't stay out for long, but she needed time. When she returned to her workshop, dawn was beginning to break. Exhausted. She sat on the step outside. She had defeated the hunters, but it did not feel like a victory, because she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Wherever these hunters went, their master would follow. Far above the planet, aboard his flagship. Warlord Krax Tavor stared at the report his trackers had sent before losing connection. His eyes gleamed. At last, whispered. The human shows her claws again. He clenched his fist. Prepare the fleet. We attack soon. On Leora 7, Mara Salas sat alone, watching the sunrise. She had hoped for peace. But peace was gone now. Destiny had caught up to her, and the war she escaped was coming back. This time to her doorstep. The sun rose over Leora 7, painting the sky with soft colors of orange and gold. The town woke slowly, unaware that danger was coming from the stars above. Children ran through the streets, shopkeepers opened their doors, and farmers prepared for another quiet day. But Mara Salas did not see peace when she looked at the sunrise. She saw the beginning of a storm. She had spent the entire night thinking, planning, and preparing. The defeated hunters still lay hidden in the forest, unconscious but alive. Soon they would wake, and when they did, they would send a signal to their master. Krax Tavor was coming. Not with 5 hunters. With a fleet. Mara stood outside her workshop, her gauntlet still glowing softly on her arm. She had wiped the blood off, but the scratches and dents remained. They were reminders that the quiet life she loved was over. She stepped into the square. Settlers greeted her with warm smiles, unaware of the danger. Tobin waited near the fountain, looking tired. He rushed toward her. Did you sleep? He asked. No, she said. Tobin looked at her gauntlet. You're really preparing for a fight. She replied. But I can't do it alone. The town needs to get ready too. She paused. It's time to tell them. Tobin nodded. Together, they walked to the center of the square. Mara stepped onto a small platform usually used for market announcements. People gathered quickly. Curious Rel. The old farmer she often helped called out, Ms. Soul, what's the news? Did something happen? Mara looked at the faces around her. These were good people. Honest people. People who had no reason to fear the galaxy beyond their sky. She took a steady breath. I need everyone to listen carefully. This is important, she began. The crowd quieted. Last night I was attacked by a group of enemy soldiers, she said. Shocked voices rose, but she raised her hand for silence. They were not bandits. They were not thieves. They came from far away. They came because of me. Tobin stepped forward. She saved the town last night. If she hadn't fought them, we'd all be in danger already. Rel looked confused. But why would soldiers come after you, Ms. Soul? What did you do? Mara felt the weight of her past press against her. It was time to stop hiding. My name is not Ms. Soul, she said softly. My real name is Mara Solace. I was a captain in the old Orion War. I commanded one of the human fleets. She paused. I destroyed a powerful enemy long ago, and now they want revenge. The crowd stared in stunned silence. And you brought that danger to us? A woman whispered. Mara nodded slowly. Yes. I came here to live a quiet life. I never wanted trouble to follow me. But now it has. And we must protect this town together. A long silence followed. Then Rel stepped forward. Mara Solis, or Ms. Soul, you've been here for years helping all of us. If someone is coming to hurt this town, we won't run. We'll fight beside you. Others nodded. You saved my son's life. One mother said, you helped repair every broken machine I've ever brought you. Another added, we stand with you. Someone else said. Mara felt warmth rise in her chest. She had expected fear, maybe anger. But instead, she found loyalty. Thank you, she said quietly. The town had chosen to fight. They had little time. So she began teaching them everything she could. By afternoon, the fields outside the town had transformed. Farmers stood where soldiers once might have. They wore old protective gear, held bolt guns, welding torches, and farming tools turned into weapons. Mara directed them with calm, sharp orders. Position the loader mechs along the north ridge. Use them as shields. Reinforce the watchtower with steel plates. Set the irrigation drones to patrol mode. They can detect movement. The settlers followed her instructions quickly, their fear turning into determination. Children carried supplies. Miners brought metal to build barricades. Engineers modified farming machines into battle machines. Liora-7 was no longer just a quiet frontier town. It was becoming a fortress. As Mara checked the defenses, Tobin approached her again. Will this be enough? He asked. She looked at the sky. I hope so. But Krax Devore won't attack with a small force. When he comes, he'll bring a fleet. Tobin swallowed hard. So we don't stand a chance? Mara shook her head. We always stand a chance. Humans always stand a chance. We fight with whatever we have, and we don't give up. By evening, the first sign of danger appeared. The clouds shifted unnaturally. The wind grew stronger. The sky turned a shade darker. Mara's visor activated on its own. Incoming energy. Signature Dominion ship detected a massive ship broke through the clouds. Its shadow covered the town. People looked up, fear filling their faces. Children ran to their parents. The elders backed away slowly. Everyone to your positions, Mara shouted. The settlers rushed into place. The loader mechs rose, forming a metal barrier. The irrigation drones buzzed into the sky. Mara stood at the front. Facing the giant ship, a loud voice echoed from the sky. Mara Solace, you hid for 10 years. Now you will face your fate. She recognized the voice. Krax Devore. Mara stepped forward. Krax, leave this world alone. Your fight is with me. His voice rumbled like thunder. You destroyed my clan. You stole my honor. I will burn everything you love. Small pods detached from the ship and began falling toward the ground. Drop pods, Mara yelled. Get ready. The pods hit the earth, exploding open. Dozens of Dominion soldiers marched out tall, armored. And armed with plasma rifles, the battle began immediately. The settlers fought bravely. Tobin used the bolt gun to hit a soldier's armor plate. Rel controlled a loader mech, swinging its massive arm to knock down enemies. Engineers activated electrified fences that sent currents through enemy lines. Mara moved through the battlefield like a force of nature. Her gauntlet glowed as she disabled enemy weapons, blocked attacks, and directed settlers to cover. But the Dominion soldiers kept coming. A blast hit the watchtower, sending debris flying. Mara rushed to help the fallen. A child cried nearby, trapped under a broken beam. Without hesitation, she lifted the beam and pulled the child free. "Go. Get to the shelter," she said. The child ran. Mara stood again, her visor scanning enemy positions. The battle raged on. Plasma fire lit the sky. Smoke filled the air. The ground shook with the weight of explosions. The settlers fought with everything they had, but the Dominion forces kept pushing forward. Then another deep rumble echoed, a coat ahead. Krax Tavor himself descended in a command dropship. He stepped out taller than any of his soldiers. Wearing heavy, scarred armor, his four eyes locked onto Mara. "You cannot hide behind these weaklings any longer," he growled. Mara stepped forward, standing between him and the town. "I'm not hiding," she said. "I'm right here." Krax lifted his massive warblade. Mara tightened her gauntlet. The final, most important battle was about to begin. The fate of Leorisivan, the people she cared about, rested on what happened next, and Mara Salas was ready to fight. Battlefield burned with bright light as Krax Tavor stepped forward. Smoke rose in thick waves, covering the sky. Fires crackled across the fields of Leorisivan. The settlers continued fighting in the distance. But here, in the center of the chaos, everything became quiet. Mara Salas stood before Krax, her boots planted firmly on the dirt. Her gauntlet hummed with energy, glowing like a small star around her fist. Her visor scanned him, showing warning after warning. Enemy commander threat level. Extreme Merkrax lifted his heavy warblade, its dark metal reflecting the orange firelight. He stared at her with his four cold eyes. "Your people fight bravely," he growled, "but bravery cannot save them. When I end you, this world will fall with you." Mara shook her head slowly. "This world is not mine to rule or lose. But these people, they trusted me. I won't let you hurt them." Krax laughed, a deep rumble that shook the ground. "Then come, Mara Salas. Let me end your legend," he charged. Mara moved first. Her gauntlet flashed as she threw a punch charged with plasma energy. Krax blocked it with his blade, sending sparks flying. The impact shook the air. She slid back, boots carving lines in the dirt. Krax swung again, faster than his large body should allow. Mara ducked, rolled, and countered with a sharp strike to his side. The gauntlet released a shockwave that pushed him back, but Krax was not shaken. He slammed his foot into the ground. Krax spread across the dirt, and the shock knocked Mara off balance. Krax rushed in and hit her with the back of his blade. She flew across the ground, tumbling through dust and smoke. For a moment she lay still. Tobin, watching from behind a broken barricade, shouted, "Mara, get up." But she already was. Mara pushed herself up, her ribs aching, her breathing hard. She wiped blood from her lip and stood tall again. "You're strong," she said. "But strength never scared me." She sprinted toward him. Their weapons clashed again and again. Each strike echoed across the battlefield. The settlers fighting nearby stopped for a moment, watching with wide eyes. It felt like two storms colliding. Krax raised his blade high and struck downward. Mara blocked with her gauntlet, sparks bursting around her face. She gritted her teeth as the pressure forced her to one knee. "You cannot win." Krax growled. "Maybe not alone," she whispered. She activated her gauntlet fully. The blue glow turned white. She released a burst of energy that blasted Krax backward. His armor cracked. He skidded across the dirt, roaring with rage. Mara staggered, the energy drain hitting her hard. Her gauntlet flickered. Low power recharge needed. Krax stood up slowly. "You fight like a true warrior, but your strength is fading." He charged again. Mara dodged, but she was slower now. His blade cut the air next to her. She barely avoided another strike. In the distance, settlers were still fighting Dominion soldiers, but they were tired. Many were injured. The battle everywhere was reaching its limit. Mara's eyes darted around. She needed a plan. Then she saw it. A loose power core from one of the broken loader mechs lay behind. Cracked sparks danced on its surface. An idea formed in her mind. She took a deep breath. Cracks. She shouted. He turned toward her. She ran at him full speed. Cracks roared and lifted his blade, ready to end the fight with one strike at the last moment. She slid under his arm, grabbed his wrist, and used his momentum to pull him forward. He stumbled and stepped right. Onto the power core, Mara hit the core with her gauntlet. It exploded. A bright blast of energy shook the ground. Cracks was thrown backward, crashing into a pile of broken metal. Smoke rose from his armor, now cracked and glowing red. The battlefield fell silent for a moment. Tobin shouted from across the field, "Is he down? Is it over?" Mara didn't answer. She walked slowly toward the smoke. Cracks pushed rubble aside and stood once more. His armor was destroyed in places. His skin was burned, but his eyes burned with hate. "You cannot win," he growled. Mara looked at him with calm eyes. "This is not about winning. It's about protecting the people behind me. That's something you never understood." Cracks raised his blade one last time. Mara raised her gauntlet. They charged toward each other. The final clash shook the ground. Her gauntlet met his blade. The energy core inside her gauntlet overloaded from the strain. The gauntlet glowed too bright to look at. Then it detonated. A shockwave of light spread across the battlefield. When the smoke cleared, Cracks was lying on the ground. His armor was shattered. His blade was broken. He tried to stand but collapsed again. Mara stood over him, breathing hard, her gauntlet completely destroyed. Her arm was burned, but she remained standing. Cracks looked up at her, defeated. "Why fight so hard? For these weak creatures?" he whispered. Mara looked back toward the town. The settlers were helping each other, protecting each other, fighting side by side despite their fear. "They're not weak," she said softly. "They're human." Cracks's eyes dimmed. His head dropped. He was finished. A loud cheer rose from the settlers. "We're safe." Someone shouted, "Mara won." Tobin ran to her side, supporting her as she almost fell. "You did it," he said, his voice shaking with relief. "We did it," she corrected, looking around at the settlers. "All of us." Dominion soldiers still on the field dropped their weapons, realizing their leader was gone. Some fled to their pods. Others simply surrendered. The battle was over. Leora 7 had survived. Mara walked slowly back to the town with the others. People hugged her, thanked her, and cried with relief. Rel came forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved all of us, Mara." Solace. "War, legend or not, you're one of us now."
Ow!
She smiled tiredly. "Thank you." That evening, the fires were finally put out. The injured were treated. The town was damaged, but it still stood. Mara sat outside her workshop, staring at the sunset. The sky glowed warm and peaceful again. Tobin sat beside her. "What now?" he asked. Mara took a slow breath. "Now, I rebuild. Help the town recover. Fix what was broken, and after?" he asked. She looked at the horizon. "Destiny brought war to me again. But maybe now, it will let me rest." Tobin smiled. "You deserve it." Mara looked at the peaceful town, feeling hope returning to her heart. For the first time in a long time, she believed she might truly find peace, and if danger ever came against, she would be ready. Not alone this time, but with a whole town standing beside her,